Hey everyone, and welcome back to the third episode of the Spore Viewer Creations Reborn, where I remake your creations that you submit to me via my Discord server. I'm still accepting more creations, though fair warning, it is a very large queue. And for my very first creation of this episode, we have the Titan Banshee Bug by Gecko Tyrant. Now, do not be fooled by what might look like a simple, boring creature, because this simple little creature is a canvas for possibilities. There is a certain level of difficulty in keeping the charm of a creature that has not a lot of details or features. However, that didn't stop me from adding a couple of details, but all within the theme of the original design. And so my first order of business was to try and make something that looked like it could stand up, since the original one looked a little bit front heavy and they would fall on its face. So I tried to take that into account with mine. I didn't want to give it any extra features like a large tail to counterbalance it. So what I did was give it large armored feet and legs that were a little bit more hunched forward. I kept the exact same face but added a couple of little extra spikes just to kind of spice it up a little bit. And otherwise, I gave a bit of a fluffy butt, which I know might sound a little bit strange, but I could just imagine this creature being like a fairly large or medium size, maybe like a grazer or even a predator for that matter, but like a large tanky creature. And large tanky creatures kind of make me think of things like elephants, where they got like a little bit of hair here and there. Maybe the elephant's not the best example, but still like a bit of a large, scraggly, fluffy, like somewhat fluffy, but overall very heavy hide covered creature. But of course, this little creature has armor as well. I took the bone knee plates it had along its back and took it to the next level by adding lots of nail downs all around it and giving a bit of a repetitive pattern. I also added some armor to the thighs as well, that way it wasn't secluded only to the back, and overall to try to add in like a couple little features here and there to kind of spice it up a little bit, but once again really keep it within the theme of the original design. Surprisingly enough, this actually might be one of my favorite recreations so far, just because it's so out of my usual style. It once again gives like an advanced Maxis kind of vibe, and creations like these really do present a fun little challenge. Now, speaking of challenges, this Antonite by Savannah Dragon 0221 really had me stumped, since I am just not very good at outfitting. There's a lot of things I try in this game, and outfitting with the vanilla Spore parts is just one of my weaknesses. So for this one, I originally started by just simply recreating the base of the alien's body. 4 arms, 2 legs, a segmented tail, and a little pincer face. Of course with a little bit of improvements to its anatomy and proportions, but otherwise about the same as the original. But when it came to the armor, I did try to stick to the original core Spore parts for the armor, but eventually I was just utterly stumped. I really wasn't sure how to do this, so eventually I thought to myself, you know what, the thing I'm good at doing is modded parts. So I grabbed the Dark Injection armored parts from Spore and utilized that as much as I could. Now, it does make the creature look very different. I now kind of imagine this one as like a sort of a heavy elite compared to the original Antonite, so I feel a little bit guilty for straying so far away from the original concept, but at the same time, once again, we are recreating, re-envisioning, and sometimes utterly redesigning these creatures, and this one seems much more into my comfort style, and it's a good reminder that I really need to try and practice outfitting more. Now, with that being said and done, next up we move on to a good old fan favorite, and that is a Godzilla-like creation by Sai, the mad scientist, and one of our most prominent Spore modders. So, funnily enough, with this being a Godzilla creation, which is one of my favorite things to make, this one actually had me kind of stumped, because I was having a very hard time, once again, trying to recreate the creation without literally remaking it. I think I may have just had an off day when I made some of these, but thankfully I did come back later in a couple of days and revisit them, and I'll tell you what, if you ever get really stuck on a creation, or art in general, a couple of days of break really helps, because when I came back feeling good and refreshed, I began to slap parts on. And you know what? The act of slapping parts on, kind of like sketching a doodle, really made a huge difference, and meant I could just add in much more shape, much more detail, have a much more flowing, natural process with this creation, and it really came together by itself. In the end, I wanted to give him a bit of a cresting around his head, typical Godzilla spikes around his spine. I bulked up the creature a little bit more compared to my original version. That way it just looks overall muscular, more grandiose, kind of like Godzilla. And I gave it a very armored tail as opposed to a spiky tail. So a bit of variations here and there. And of course, very spiky arms, legs, and shoulders. So in the end, I went for more of a remaster of Sai's original Godzilla creation, since the design he had was pretty solid overall. I just felt like it was either a bit too skinny, or a couple of areas could just do like a little bit more stuff, and I tried my best with this. I felt the colors really bring it out in particular. I love the color palette of black, blue, and cyan, and it just makes for a very nice change of pace compared to my usual Godzilla creations where I nitpick the crap out of everything. This one was a lot more relaxed and a lot more enjoyable. For our fourth creation of the day, we had the Walktail by Nightlight. Another more simplistic creature, but one I immediately had some inspiration for. You see, the tail area looked incredibly lacking and beaming with potential. And in addition, the overall shape of the limbs that Nightlight had in their original creation was also just really interesting, how it had two joints instead of the one. Something about just the way this creature stands I thought was really cool and I really enjoyed it. But as for the tail itself, I wanted the tail to be flexible. I wanted it to wave around when it animates, and to achieve that, all you simply do is add in extra joints to your limb tails. The more joints, the more flexibility. However, you don't want to add too much because it does get us a bit spazzy, I say from experience. But otherwise, so the tail is swaying wonderfully. I then applied all of the Phineas parts to the tail, just like Nightlight had in their original one, but my one were much more open and broader, more like a sail. And while the design may look a little bit repetitive, it just animates so nicely, and every now and then it's great to make a creature that simply animates nicely. I also added a couple of tendrils to the back of it because the creature gave me a bit of an aquatic vibe, and its head and neck just felt a little bit bland. So the tendrils just meant for like a nice, kind of wispy extra integument. I added another fin to the limbs because once again they also felt a little bit bland, and overall I feel like it just kind of ties the creature together really nicely. And just like with the Titan Banshee Bug, it's great to have a bit of variety every now and then and play with a more simplified style. And then for our fifth and final creation, I have a surprise from a brand new creator for you to enjoy.
The attributes of the victim have been analyzed, and a reformation of a superior product commences. Feature analysis decrees that the manufacturing chamber shall take into account the victim's expertise in polearm weaponry, along with its four-legged mobility, to ensure that the neural network shall be trained accordingly. Natural formed calcium plating patterns from the victim's biological makeup shall be reformed as a unique compound alloy, usually formed for use by the manufacturing division's Starship construction team. The reformed plating shall ensure that the superior product shall remain resilient against all trauma inflicted against it. Additional fusion jet propulsion has been fitted onto the superior product to increase the product's top speed by a factor of 10. Support framework has been wired directly into the internal reserves to ensure that its energy supply remains undisrupted during critical warfare operations. A micro-turret platform has been additionally fused and networked onto the final product, with its own independent acting artificial intelligence to ensure a 360-degree autonomous operation, aiming and firing systems. Polearm construction commenced after the base formation of the superior product entered neural learning sequencing states. Starship alloys have once again been utilized in the core reinforcement of the polearm, ensuring guaranteed durability against all but the strongest of hybrid materials present within mortal existence. The fusion energy delivery towards the edge of the blade ensures guaranteed damage against the selected target. Custom modular hands were forged and then asymmetrically split apart after completion, ensuring that they remain both in a modular state for ease of adjustment and strong enough to withstand extreme trauma. technical information as to the origin of its dedicated artificial intelligence and reality collapsing energy core remains classified. A randomized display of lesser victims from the past. An ever-hovering, ever-observing crown. Behold, a transformed entity.
Wasn't that just incredible? Terrasect, thank you so much for joining me, and congratulations to Dractoon for having such an incredible remake. Really puts my own creations to shame, but I'm so happy for people to finally see what Terrasect can do. He has his own YouTube channel. You should definitely go check him out. There's a link to it in the video description down below. His style is nothing like you've seen on my channel. And there we have our 5 creations of the episode. No ZBrush one today because we had such a wonderful bonus of a giant mega build, which I think is rather fair. Besides, the ZBrush ones are community voted, which means that no one's missed out. It'll simply be in the next episode. So thank you all so much for joining me. And thank you once again to Terrasect for joining me in this video. And of course, if you are wanting to submit your own creations to be remade, you may do so via my Discord server, which is discord.gg/DarkEdgeTV, and you can submit your creations in the Remaking Creations channel, the one with the little star. Thank you all so much again for watching, and I hope you have a lovely day. I'll see you next time. Cheers.